This touchscreen is working on just an Arduino Nano and a few lines of code. In this video, I will be teaching you how to build this from scratch using the Nextion display and the Arduino Nano to control peripherals and display sensor readings. In this video, we will be using the Nextion display. Specifically, we will be working with this one. This is a 3.2-inch model, and we're going to be pairing it with the Arduino Nano. And by the end of this tutorial, you will understand how the Nextion Editor works and also how to connect and program it with two practical examples. Okay, let's begin with the first example. To do that, we're going to open the Nextion Editor. So you can see this is our Nextion Editor that opened. You can see right here, let me first of all do a brief explanation of the layout. You can see right here, this is the toolbox as we discussed before. On the toolbox, we have many components. And we have another part here for fonts. So this is where you choose the font for the text that you want to be using on your project. And right here, you have the pages. Like I said, a project can have many pages. So this is where you add them and reduce and remove them. And these are attributes. For every component you set in your canvas, you can change the properties from this attribute panel. So let's create our first project. The project we're going to create is going to be based on the Nextion display that I have, which is the 3.2 inches. So we begin by clicking new. Okay, we give a name to the project. We call it test, and then we save. Okay, this window that showed here, on this window, we're going to select the type of Nextion display we have. In my case, I have this Nextion display, which is the 3.2 inches version. So I'm going to click OK, and then I choose the direction. I want my display to be horizontal, so all the tools that are going to be displaying on my display should be laid out horizontally. So I'm going to click here and click OK. So as you can see right here, we have our display that showed here. So you will see now that all the tools, the components inside the toolbox are enabled. We can now begin by designing them. We have here on the page, we are on page 0. We can add a page by clicking here, clicking add. If we click add, you see one page is going to add, but we want to work with page 0. So we go back, we delete back this page and work with page 0. So to do that now, we're going to first of all begin by creating a font for our project. So we go to tools and we click on generate font. So this font is going to be the size of the text that we're going to display on our parameters. For example, the text, that is supposed to be the size of it, the font type, and all of that. So I'm going to choose 16 for this and just click generate font. This font does not have a name, we call it font 1. We save it as font 1. We already created one as font 1, so we just replace it, and then we save it as font 1. So you will see here on the font panel, the font added here. So we're going to create another font. We give it a size of 32 of the same type. We create generate fonts, and then we call it font 2. Okay, so we click OK, and then we add the fonts. So we have two fonts on our font panel, so we can now close this window. Now, on this project, you see here that we have on this side, on our project, we're going to first of all set a background. On the background here, we're going to change its attribute. So the background color should be something different. So at this point, we're going to, on this part here on the attribute panel, you're going to see that we have background color to be white. So we're going to change it to something a little bit different. So let's choose this color and set it to that. So our background has changed. So we're going to have two buttons. The first button is going to be on. So we come here on the toolbox, we drag and drop. We have our first button. And then we bring another button which we're going to call off. So let's go to the attribute and change the parameters for the buttons. So we're going to come here and click on the, first of all, the color of on should be red. The background color should be red. Okay, and then we change the size. We can just change the size here by dragging and resize. Okay, we can do the same for this one. Or we can go there and copy the numbers and then just replace on the attribute box. This one should be black to represent off, so we change the color to be black. Okay, so now let's change the font size, the font color and the font and the text inside the font. We can put, for the red, we put the text. We can replace this new text with on. So we go to the font. We say this one is font. We put this one to on. Okay. So we can go to, if we put 1 there, you see that it's going to be bigger. So we go to the other one, font. The text should be off. Okay, you see that it is not visible because the background color is black. So we have to change the font color for the text and make it to be white. Now let's go and change the font type and make it 1. Good. So we now have our 2 buttons right here. So at this point, we're going to add something a little bit fun to the project. So here we're going to drag in the gauge and bring in the gauge into our project. Let's resize it a bit smaller. Okay. So what I want to do with this one is to indicate if the numbers on the, let's first of all add a number. We can add number here. We add number here. Let's resize it a little bit. Okay, so we can come here and change the font type to 1. Okay, and here for the background color, we can change it to something a little bit different. Okay, so we have this. Now we have all our controls. Let's give them names. You can click here, the object name. So we can give it button 1 for button 1. We come here for button 2. Button 2. And then for this one, we're going to call it voltage. Let's call it voltage, because we're going to be reading the value from the potentiometer, so we call it voltage. Okay, or let's call it angle. Let's call it angle, and then we call this one gauge. Okay, so now that we are done with our layout, what we are going to do now is to change some settings. We are going to work with the events. So we're going to create So we are going to create the event that should occur when a button is pressed. Okay, so we click on this. Now the event is enabled. We want that if this button is pressed, the software should send out, the display should send out on the serial port 1. So we come here, we type in print 1. Okay. And then we come here, we type here print 0. So what we are basically saying is that if this button is pressed, the serial monitor the display should send out 0 on the serial monitor or 1. So at this point we are done with that part. So we're going to work on the angle. So right here we are reading a value from an analog port on the Arduino Nano. So right here, what we're supposed to have is, so before we go there, let me show you. So let me first of all compile this program to see if there's any problem. So you can see right here that there's no problem. Everything is done very well. So we can debug this now. right here. This is the debugging part of this. So if I click on, you see that I have 1 here. If I click on off, I have 0. So we're going to change this value here. So to do that, we have the name of the button, right? That was button 1. That was the name of the text box was angle. We say dot val for value. Okay, we make it to be equal to 30. Then we press enter. So you see that when we type this code and then we press enter, the value here changes. The value of the gauge as well. If you type in error, so it's supposed to be gauge dot val is equal to 90. You see the cursor changes and move and points up. If we say it's equal to 120, we see gauge dot val is equal to 120. We have it changed to that. So these are the values that we are going to be sending with our Arduino Nano. All these values that we see here, if we send these values through the serial monitor, so we send a string of these values through the serial monitor, we are going to be able to change the parameters of all of these components. And right here, if we click on this, we are going to be sending out 0 and 1. So now that we are done with this, let me show you how to upload the program, to load the program into the Nextion display. So we are done with this. We have debugged and we have tested. Everything is going to be okay. So the next thing that we're going to do here now is to go to File and then TFT File Out. We click here and then we choose the location where we want our file to be saved. So we can go there. So we can create a new folder here. We see next. Let's call it Nextion. It's a Nextion code. We create a new folder. We call it test 1. We see OK, and then we click on output. So you see here that a file has been generated with the name test.tft. We are going to copy this file into an SD card. So this is the memory card that we're going to use for this project. This is a 16 gigabyte memory card. Any size can work. So we first of all need to make sure that we have formatted the memory card and make sure that the memory card is empty before we load in any file. So we now go to our Nextion screen, and then we now go to File, and then we save our .tft file again. Okay, this is it. We copy this file here and save it into the memory card. And then now we can close this and remove the memory card. As you can see, this is the Nextion display right here, and this is the memory card in which we have uploaded our .tft file. So we're going to plug in the memory card into the Nextion display, and then we will now power the Nextion display. To do that, we plug in here. And then we power the board. So you will see here that we have the memory card uploading the file, and then it says update successful. So we can now remove the memory card and then restart the display. So you see here that our program has been uploaded. So as you can see right here, let's do a brief walk through the program, the Arduino code. So we go through, then you see here that we begin by using software serial, and then we create a port which we call Nextion, and then we connect it to port 2, so pin 2 and pin 3. So pin 2 is the receiver and pin 3 is the transmitter. And then we are controlling load 4, which is we are controlling a load which is connected on pin 1. And then here we initialize the Nextion display with a baud rate of 9600. Okay, and then we initialize the port as output, and then we give it an initial value of high, which is 1. And then we come here, and if any value is received on the serial port, we read that value and store in the variable read. And then we read the first bit, the first character of the string, and then we interpret if it is on or off. This is what this part of the code does. And then here we are reading the analog value on pin 7. So we are doing an analog read on pin 7, and then we are mapping that value from 0 to 964 to 360 full cycle and storing the value into that. And then we are sending the value into angle. So we are forwarding the string to the Nextion display with the value of that with empty byte, with byte of FF, and we are doing the same thing for the gauge. Right here, you can see on the display here that we have values jumping from one value to another, and then the gauge is moving accordingly. That's because we have not connected the potentiometer yet, so I'm going to do that now. So you see that the values have stopped jumping from one value to another. So we can now start tuning this. You see now that the value move accordingly. And then now, if we take note of this LED here to indicate when this relay is on or off. So if I press on, the LED is on. If I press off, the LED is off. As you can see, all of this is being run just with the Arduino Nano. That is because this display has an ARM microprocessor on it, which interprets and does everything for you. So it does the heavy lifting, and the microcontroller here, which is the Arduino, is used to do only the interpretation of the values being sent through serial port. Okay, so this is the basic project that I wanted to make and share with you guys. It's been a long time since I uploaded a video. I hope this is good, and hope you learned something new from me today. I'll be happy to make videos later. Thank you so much for watching. If you did like it, don't forget to share, subscribe for more. I'll see you next time on the next one. Goodbye.